All right, so welcome back for another one. Today I'm going to talk about how negative thoughts can take over your life, how you don't really catch those patterns early if you're not aware of them, how they affect your mental health, your body, and even your closest relationships. And we all go through this problem. So it's a interesting topic for me because I've kind of observed this kind of conflict in people all my life and in myself, and I'm trying to better it. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 5 most common ways people get pulled into negative thought spirals and why understanding these patterns matter in our life. Okay, let's go. So the first, the top 5 negative patterns. The first one's rumination. So replaying the same thoughts over and over again, like they're going to change something, like you can do it better, like it even has some kind of value. So the first way negative thoughts like this take over in that spiraling loop is called rumination, and it can creep its head into so many other aspects of your life if you're not aware of it. So that's when someone keeps replaying the same fear, the same mistake, the same painful memory or affirmation instead of processing it and moving forward. What does this look like? Somebody will hear something about a specific topic. They will have a repressed subconscious spiraling loop and pattern, and then they'll start going over the same kinds of conversations in the past and applying it to the new ones that they're reliving in the moment. So effectively bringing that energy from the past and reliving the same regrets or the same losses or the same fears. The person keeps asking themselves why they feel this way, but the thinking never really leads to clarity. It's just a complete energy trap. That's the psychological impact. So rumination, it's strongly linked with depression, with anxiety. Research also connects it with poor sleep and worse perceived health. Like I said, it's an energy trap. It sucks away our life force. So there's also evidence that rumination may have psychological consequences through stress-related inflammatory processes, chronic back pain, for example, just pains in your body that show up. Uh, tighten neck muscles and shoulders and whatever else, or it can be other stuff like deficiencies, sexual deficiencies, all types of things. Irritable bowel syndrome. So when somebody's stuck in rumination, they often become less present, less decisive, more emotionally drained, sometimes more defensive. It can affect work, self-esteem, and the quality of connection they bring into relationships. And research on repetitive negative thinking shows it as a broad process tied to emotional distress across conditions. It's a complex condition because it often comes from a repressed matter that, once again, because we've ruminated over it so many times, we look for that repetition in a pattern and we apply it to something that might not even be relevant. So what's a reflection point from this? Because I always like to balance these kinds of videos with a solution. So what thought do you keep revisiting that is no longer helping in any way? It's no longer helping to stop an argument, to prevent you from doing something. In fact, it might keep you repeating it. Okay, let's move on. Number 2, catastrophizing. Catastrophizing. So that comes from the word catastrophe, like disaster, assuming the worst before it happens. So the second way spiraling thoughts take over is catastrophizing. It's when the mind jumps straight to the worst case scenario and starts treating the probability like it's definitely 100% certainty. And what does this look like? It's one delayed reply becomes rejection, one setback becomes complete failure, one symptom becomes disaster. In worst cases, you're out somewhere and a group of people you don't even know are laughing, and that becomes they're laughing at you. What's wrong with me? What didn't I do? What do I look like? Why is this happening again? On and on and on. Catastrophizing. is associated with higher anxiety and distress. And in health research, it's linked with worse pain-related outcomes, poorer physical and mental functioning. In fact, it can completely shut you down. And even when pain intensity is accounted for, you just keep going on and pushing it. Once again, all of these thoughts are like energy traps. And when people tend to think the worst, they often overreact. They become hyper vigilant, like really aware. That's why they can hear a conversation somewhere else and think it's about them. They can make fear-based decisions, which often lead to something really bad that, that could have been avoided. They can create tension in relationships because others might feel that they're always being pulled into some bullshit crisis mode, and the pattern keeps the nervous system on alert. Once again, if you've got this going on, I did. We all go through phases like this in life. If anyone tells you that they're perfect, well, maybe they are. I don't know. Just focus on yourself. What I'm trying to say is, what can I reflect on? Where can you reflect on in life if you have a tendency to think the worst of a situation? So where in life am I treating fear as if it's a fact, And you can see this in a lot of patterns. You might, just an example, you might think the worst thing is going to happen if you ever approach anyone, if you ever ask for anything, just because you got horribly rejected in the past. Anyway, number 3, trying to suppress the thought instead of facing it. So the third way negative thought takes over is through suppression, trying to just completely dull that down. And the more you try to force a thought away, the more power it can come back with. This is often linked with addiction, with don't think about it, I'll think about it later, but for now, I'm just going to have fun. You tell yourself, you know what, I deserve to distract myself and numb myself and avoid, but you know what, that's just like buying a little bit of time, because the thought comes back even stronger. So research on thought suppression and avoidance in general shows that a rebound effect, unwanted thoughts come more frequently and more emotionally loaded when people try to push them away, especially if they've been avoiding them for years. So suppression is also linked with psychological distress. Emotional suppression more broadly is associated with elevated stress-related physiology. Again, this all manifests in the body. We're a spirit, mind, body ecosystem. And when I say spirit, I mean energy. We're all energy. We're all energetic beings. Our mind affects the type of energy that we not only surround ourselves with and live in and attract, but also the kind of energy that flows through our body. So suppression can reduce openness and connection, not only with others, but with ourselves in our own bodies. And study on emotional suppression have linked it with reduced social connectedness, societal costs. You might just completely isolate yourself in relationships, or just be doing the complete wrong thing because you've suppressed the thought and your shadow comes out, because others often feel distance when the inner emotion is still there. People can sense this stuff even if you're trying to avoid it. So what can you reflect on? What emotions or thoughts are you trying so hard not to feel? And again, go get some help if they're overwhelming. You can always find help out there and within yourself as well, if you go easy on yourself and if you just start from a point of acceptance and understanding. Anyway, point number 4, constant reassurance seeking. That's not what I mean by getting help in the past point. Getting help is moving forward, constantly seeking reassurance is the 4th way of spiraling thoughts that take over. It feels like relief in the moment, somebody patting you on the back saying, hey, that's okay, you know what, whatever. We've all seen it. We've all seen drinking buddies, for example, that complain constantly about jobs, wives, girlfriends, whatever it might be, gossip. It feels like relief in the moment, but it really doesn't serve any purpose, but training the mind to depend on certainty from the outside and from usually superficial relationships with others. What it looks like. Are you sure? Did you think I did the wrong thing? Are we okay? Again and again, because the relief never lasts. I could give a whole list of examples of how this manifests out in the workplace, from needing reassurance as well, instead of just accepting the fact that, you can always do better. Anyway, that might have been off tangent. Research describes excessive reassurance seeking as common across anxiety disorders and linked with worse symptoms over time. It might reduce anxiety briefly, but it can keep the underlying fear cycle going. The same way an addiction pattern grows is the same way we get addicted to kind of weak, excessive reassurance seeking. It also lowers trust in romantic relationships. Partners want to see strength in their partners. They don't want to constantly babysit and reassure them. Later, interpersonal rejection, especially if you change groups of people, or if you all of a sudden one day have realized that life moves forward and you don't have those same people around you that were constantly sitting there and telling you, you know what, it's okay, it's life's fault, it's so-and-so's fault. It causes a strain in future close bonds. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Nobody wants to carry anyone else's baggage. So what begins as a search for safety, or maybe a need to communicate, really erodes any kinds of relationship, not only with others, but with yourself. You can reflect on this by asking, where am I asking others to calm me down and a fear that I have, instead of learning to hold that fear myself, or going and embracing that fear myself? Because we all have fears. Nobody has the answer for you. Anyway, point number 5, withdrawing and isolating. And all of these, you can see, are closely linked with topics like addiction, with topics like how can I put it, unhealthy obsessions with all different types of patterns of comforting, soothing, avoiding, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, withdrawing and isolating. The 5th way, it's when people spiral, they often pull away from the very relationships and routines that could help regulate them. When we embrace those fears and push towards them, we grow. When we avoid them, well, we cancel plans, we stay silent, we pull back emotionally, we spend more time alone in a thought loop. Again, if you want to think about this energetically, your energy is literally just going in a loop. And I'm not going to talk about the spiritual implications of that. I might in future videos, but basically you're wasting away your potential through social isolation and constant affirming of loneliness. You're more prone to depression, emotional distress, again, poorer physical health, higher healthcare use, which all leads to what? It leads to earlier death and disease and all types of things. Again, a very relevant topic here that I could go into, but let's just keep it focused on ourselves. Withdrawal within ourselves makes any kind of repair harder, be it physical or emotional repair. What do you do when you have a big accident? You go do rehabilitation. You don't sit in your bed for the rest of your life. And without this kind of push to go forward, it leaves your loved ones guessing behind. It creates emotional distance. It strengthens the belief that nobody understands you. Over time, this pattern is like a switch. You just switch it on and you start thinking the same stuff. And isolation can really deepen that conversation and that spiral feel more true, simply because there's no outside perspective in interrupting it. And when we invite an outside perspective in, then we observe ourselves differently. So that's the point, when you spiral, do you isolate instead of reaching for grounded support? What does grounded support mean? Well, I mean, it means putting yourself out there in the first place, and anyway, not closing yourself off. So negative thoughts and spiraling thoughts, they don't just take over at once. They're a pattern. They're, ruminating, catastrophising. Oh my God, I've got trouble with that word. Suppression, reassurance seeking, withdrawal. They're just some of the top 5 ways in which you can look at yourself if you find yourself in, an energetic loop. It's costing you quality of life. It affects your mind, your body, and your relationships, and overall your potential. So once you can call the pattern out for what it is, you can start interrupting it and you can start doing something about it. Anyway, hope that's been helpful. I'll catch you on the next one.